Hey, Austin. Good
Hey,
morning.
Dad. How are
We
you?
got. I'm good. I'm excited. We got a longtime friend with us today, and today we're going to take a look inside Austin, the heart, mind, and leg of a Pro Bowl punter in his NFL journey over a 15-year period with five different teams, 1,000 plus punts, and 44,000 yards traveled. But this is a story about his faith journey and the process of awakening and discovering his true identity and his desire to give back. My name is Ken Karcher, and I'll be your host today. And alongside me is my son Austin. And today we'd like to welcome Brian Hansen to Awaken Kingdom Culture, where hearts and minds come alive, one story at a time. Morning, Brian.
Good morning or afternoon. I'm not sure what it is, but good to be with you guys and glad we got connected. So looking
We're
forward to it.
excited to be with you, Brian. Let's go back to when you were a kid, Brian, growing up in your home at I think it was Iowa, if I remember correctly. And tell us a little bit about your family, parents, if you had some siblings, and just what it was like growing up in the Hansen home.
Yeah, I grew up in Haywarden, Iowa, town of about 3,000 people, small school in northwest Iowa, and had two brothers and a sister, and sports was a big part of our life. Spent a lot of time in the backyard, had a big backyard, and that was the kind of the designated playing field for the local neighborhood. A lot of games and stuff happened back there with yeah, over the years, the games that we created, and we had a game called Kickback, which we started when we were prepping for punt, pass, and kick, which was probably the first thing that I ever competed in. And we had a power line that kind of crossed our lot line with the neighbors, and we would try to kick it over the power line and into a row of trees. And that was, if you get it into the trees, then you'd get a point. And so that's kind of how it all started, working to prepare for punt, pass, and kick, turned into kickback, and yeah, a lot of hours spent in the backyard.
When you think about growing up in your home, how did that influence who you've become today, Brian?
I was blessed to grow up with parents that we were in church every Sunday, Sunday school, Bible school, the whole deal, a youth group, and so there was a firm foundation there. Prayer was part of our meal together, and so that was just what I grew up with. Spent a lot of time with my grandparents, lived out in the country. There was a small country church, and that had a huge impact in my life. Just the impact that my grandparents had on me, and just that small country church. So I mean, I was blessed with just a tremendous faith environment, and parents and grandparents that was an integral part of their life.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Brian, tell us a little bit about your relationship with your dad and maybe a memorable conversation you had with him growing up.
Oh man, he's up here with us today. He's just turned 91.
Wow.
Wow.
He's in great health and sound mind and the whole deal. So we're really, really blessed to have that many years with him. But we had a lot of adventures, over the years. He was my long snapper. When I'd work out in the summer, when I first started, kicking the ball, I would get Dad to go up to the high school football field, and he'd be in his blue jeans and cowboy boots, and he'd snap to me, and he was actually pretty good.
Hmm.
Uh, it was not up to probably NFL standards, but he was on a line, and it came back. It was very catchable, let's say, but he put it where I could catch it, and that was kind of a neat. A lot of years together and a lot of snaps together, but I was blessed with a great dad. He was a middle school principal,
Okay.
so I had to get through my seventh and eighth grade year and stay out of trouble because I knew what would happen when I got home. But yeah, a dad that was just a tremendous role model and mentor, and uh, just a solid father and husband.
Mm. Um, Obviously, you mentioned a little bit about what got you into punting and stuff like that, but who played a major role in your just your influence or in the influence of getting you in your athletic career?
Oh golly, I had my brothers. There was just that competition and the neighbor kids, and it was just that's all we did. That's what we lived for. But I had a coach in Pee Wee baseball that I look back all the coaches that had an impact in my life, and he was just a wonderful guy, great coach. I mean, the guy that you would hope to have.
Mm.
Um, at that stage in life, that just was an encourager and just made it fun.
Yeah.
And so I had guys like that. I had other coaches throughout high school, good and bad, that I think helped develop me and inform me to see, the good, the bad, the ugly. I've had a lot of coaches over the years and had some really good ones, but in college, I had a couple of guys that were solid Christian coaches that that was an integral part of our program that kind of instilled biblical principles and just they followed Christ and modeled Christ and I got exposed to that. So
Mm.
the foundation that I had as a kid and then experiencing that at the college level when I was kind of moving in the opposite direction, that kind of got me thinking and it really had a tremendous impact in my life.
Mm. What were some of your favorite teams and maybe some heroes of yours growing up?
Oh, I was a Vikings fan, I guess, as a kid, and went through the lean years and the almost years where they got there,
Yeah.
but never won a Super Bowl. And then that kind of changed once I got in the league. I couldn't root for them anymore. Uh, but I was a big, I guess, as a when I started taking an interest in punting, Ray Guy
Mm.
was kind of the guy that I looked up to and hoped to be like, and um, that was one of the guys that I would watch and try to emulate, and he had just the success that he had and the level that he performed. Just punters don't get a whole lot of attention, or you don't notice those guys a whole lot, but he was one guy that stood out and
Mm.
certainly a guy that I looked up to.
Mm.
He was a heck of an athlete as well. It's like I know you were too, but people think punters aren't good athletes. Ray Guy was a great athlete.
Yeah, I think he was the only guy drafted in the first round as a punter, and I think he was a backup quarterback. And I don't
Mm.
know if he played another position in college, but yeah, he was. From what I heard, he was pretty good athlete.
Mm. So tell us kind of the role of faith in your home.
Growing up as a kid,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, it was. I wouldn't say that we were evangelicals by any means. Based on what I've come to see and know and what I've kind of experienced since then. But um, we were part of the church. We served in the church. We prayed before meals, but that was kind of the extent of it.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot of Bible study or devotions or anything like that. Um, but it was an important part of our family and our uh, my initial years.
Yeah.
So I'm just grateful for that foundation and for that being an important thing to my parents, that they
Yeah.
would instill that in us and expose us to that, and that being in church was a priority.
Mm. Tell us about your high school career.
Oh golly, I I played every sport for the most part. Growing up, got to high school. I came from a wrestling community, and
Mm.
so all my buddies were wrestlers. And so I naturally, was going to hang out with my buddies and became a wrestler and attempted to do that for a few years. But uh, I mean, I learned a few moves that kind of came in handy with my brothers, being able to, you know, take them down and get the best of them. But that was not my calling, and that lasted a couple of years. And then I kind of took an interest in pole vaulting. My
Yeah.
Wow.
football coach recruited me to come out for track. I didn't want to run. I wasn't fast. I couldn't run distance. And he said, well, come out and try, a field event. So I, kind of experimented with a couple different things and ended up pole vaulting. And that became my thing. I mean, I just loved it. I had a brother and a couple of buddies, and we had kind of a pole vaulting fraternity and just had a blast with it, and actually had some success in spite of my lack of speed, which is a necessary ingredient for going higher.
Yeah.
You got to have a little speed going down the runway, but um, ended up doing fairly well. Ended up second place in the state meet, and that was kind of my goal, and that I was going to get to the state meet, and ended up at least getting there, but had some success there, and so much that I didn't go out for football my junior year just because I wanted to work on pole vaulting. So I
Mm.
didn't go out for football my junior year, and then kind of missed it. My coach recruited me to come out my senior year, and that was the year that I went to a University of South Dakota and North Dakota game, and I saw two of the best punters in the country, and I was just kind of captivated by the show they put on that day. It was kind of a defensive battle, so these guys were punting back and forth. They were just hitting these bombs, and I just took an interest in doing that and started kind of working on it, and went back my senior year and just was primarily working on punting. Played wide receiver and defensive back, and but I would go out and kick before practice, after practice, and anytime I'd get a chance. And it all kind of started with that kickback game,
Mm.
in the backyard. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, there was an interest there. I had some success, and um, thought maybe I could do this, at the college level. I had a brother that played quarterback at Sioux Falls College,
Mm.
and I saw their punters, and I said, "Man, I can do that good." Thought maybe I could play with my brother at Sioux Falls College if he would allow me to go to school there, and ended up um, got a whopping $300 scholarship to go to Sioux Falls College and be a punter and tight end. So kind of amazing how that all worked together and how it ended up.
Did you have a favorite high school memory?
Oh, in sports.
In sports or outside of sports?
Oh man, a lot of memories. So I played tight end, and we were kind of a running team, and they wanted to get the passing game going, but they would never throw the ball to me, and I was getting really frustrated, and they just kind of had me as a blocking tight end, and I wasn't a good blocking tight end. I don't know why they had me there. It's just nowhere else to go. But the last game of the year, we played a team that was um, a pretty good team. I can't remember what their record was, but it was a chance for us to have our first winning season in like 25 years if we
Okay.
won. And for some reason, they decided to throw me the ball that game, and I had three touchdowns, 220 yards receiving, and an interception. And so it was. I mean, it was kind of a highlight, but it kind of legitimizes my athleticism because,
Yeah.
like Ken said, punters are. Well, I guess you did say punters are real athletes. It's the kickers. the flaky guys. So that would be my memory. My last game of my senior year, I actually had some success, but prior to that, I think they threw me the ball about 3 or 4 times. So
So you mentioned how you got to Sioux Falls College. Tell us a little bit about your experience there and maybe some of your highs and lows throughout that college time, Brian.
um, it was, it was a great experience, great friends, great coaches. Um, I, my very first year, I tore up my knee. I tore the meniscus in my leg and was out. So I got redshirted, which actually worked out pretty good because I got an extra year to kind of get polished and get a little more consistent. But those 4 years were, you get away from home and you're getting caught up with your football buddies, and they're coming from all walks of life. And so my faith journey at that point was pretty typical of a lot of football players and a lot of young men that get out of the house and get caught up in the things of the world and things that are going on in college. And but there was always that, um, I guess, the influence of my coach more than anything, and other teammates. There was a handful of guys that were, um, followers of Christ. There was something different about them. There was something intriguing about them. I professed to be a believer, but I could see these guys. There was something different. There was something different about the coach, and that had a huge impact in my life. And I didn't necessarily um, respond probably in the way that I should have or would have liked to. It was one of those things, and I think this is common to man or to a lot of us, that one day I'm gonna be like Coach Young.
Yeah.
And you saw that example, you saw who he was and what he lived for, and and the way that he dealt with us, and the way that he spoke to us, and just the way that he coached, and just his coaching philosophy, and his love for his players, and his love for Christ. And that was very clear, and he was very intentional about it. And so I was, always exposed to that. But then you get back to the dorms with the boys, and so you're kind of balancing that. You're kind of straddling the fence and trying to figure out which way you should go. So those are some formidable years, and had
Yep.
some, just thankful for the people that God put in my life that kind of helped move me in the direction that I needed to go, and eventually uh, got to.
So when you look at your college career, and I think this happens in all of our lives as athletes, was there a moment or a situation that you said, I think I might be able to do this professionally?
Um, yeah, it was kind of a thought that I had initially, but I was pretty realistic about it. I didn't really think that that was going to happen, but I was going to kind of shoot for it,
Hmm.
strive for it, and maybe give me a little time to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Um, they would send out these token scouts, Blesco. I don't know if you remember that, Ken.
Oh, yes, yes.
They were the scouting combine, and they would send out a scout to every school. And Sioux Falls College was at the bottom of the rung. Um, there was no smaller 4 year. We were NAI Division III, but they'd get a scout every year. They'd come in and check with the coach. Do you have anybody worth looking at? And he'd give them 2 or 3 guys. We got a punter that's got a strong leg, and you might want to take a look at him. So they looked, evaluated, and came back the next year. Then I started talking to them. Then they started sending out individual scouts, and they said, you got some potential. You just need to get more consistent. And great. Maybe I could get in to an NFL camp, sign as a free agent, and that became a little more realistic, but I thought that was my biggest hope, desire, that I could just get into a camp, tell my grandkids that I was in an NFL camp. And I mean, really, that was my only expectation of what would come from that. So, but when they started sending individual scouts my senior year, I knew that there was some potential, and I'd gone to some camps at that point, and there was some professional guys. There was a guy named Bucky Dilts. Do you remember him?
I do remember Bucky Dilts.
From the Broncos. I don't know
Yes.
when you were there if he was there, but he was at a camp that I was at, and I was um, kicking as well, if not better than him. And he kind of acknowledged that and said, you got a pro leg,
Mm.
and really encouraged me. But I just kind of saw myself by comparison that, man, he's been playing for a couple of years. He's an NFL punter, and I think I could do that. So that then I just thought, well, maybe I'll get signed, maybe I won't. I certainly didn't expect to get drafted, but uh, ended up getting drafted by the Saints, and that was that's where we met
Yes.
a
Yes.
long time ago.
Take us through your NFL experience.
Oh golly. So I was working out in Reno, Nevada, the MGM Grand Casino as a change boy. Uh, Working out with my kicking coach. There was guys that would go out there, and there was a guy that was a national kicking coach, and I had connected with him, and so prior to the draft, they had workouts, and um, they had a big tryout. So they'd have NFL scouts or special teams coaches that would come out, and guys would kick, and they'd evaluate them. And I gotta let Mike come here. The dog's yapping. Come here, get in here.
That's all right. We need to let the dog be seen.
Okay, sorry guys.
Oh, no worries.
Uh,
That's all right.
so um, so I was at this tryout camp, and I you kick so many balls, and they got hang times and distance. They charted you, and then they would rank you, and so I really didn't know what would come from that. But I was out there for 2 months working as a change boy in the casino. The coach out there would get you a job in the casino. He had these connections, and he'd find housing for you. And the day that of the draft, I had met with the Cowboys the night before and was gonna sign as a free agent if I didn't get drafted. And so I'm thinking, I'm a Cowboy, I'm not going to get drafted. And they said, we want to sign you tomorrow if you don't get drafted. Find out the next day I'm drafted by the Saints. And the people that I was staying with, there's an older couple. We didn't have cell phones back then, so they came out to the casino. I wasn't sitting at home watching the TV like they do now, expecting to get drafted. It was anything but that. Um, I'm working. They come out there and tell me, "Hey, we just got a call from the Saints, and they just drafted you in the second round." I said, "The second round? Are you serious?" It was kind of one of those Shakir Sanders, or what's the guy's name that just
Yeah,
got,
Shador.
yeah,
Shador.
Shador. Kind of got. It was like second round. I was not expecting to get drafted at all. Well, they missed it by 7 rounds. It was actually the ninth round,
Oh,
but
okay.
ended up getting drafted. And they said, you're supposed to call this number. So I go to the payphone and called Bum Phillips, and got a chance to go to New Orleans. So
Hmm. So tell us about, describe where you were in your spiritual journey at this point.
at that point, I had the Sioux Falls College um, experience which was good. It was a, it was a building block. There was, I don't know where I was at spiritually, but that day, the first thing that I did when I found out I got drafted was, well, I quit my job. I turned in my my change boy outfit, and they had a chapel in the casino. And of all places, I had no idea that it was there, but I had seen it. And the first thing that I did was I went to that chapel and I literally got on my knees.
Mm.
And I was, really nowhere spiritually. My prayer life was um, limited, and just really literally got on my knees and said, "Thank you, Lord," and said, "I don't know what's coming or where I'm going, but whatever, that somehow I would honor you with this." And that's all I can really remember. But there was just kind of an acknowledgement of His hand
Yeah.
in it, and I wanted to acknowledge that and to honor Him in some way, shape, or form. And where that would go, I had no idea. So that was kind of the start and the beginning of I don't know, just a reality that it was not of myself,
Yeah.
and that it was of Him. And I had that, at least I had that awareness.
Yeah. Tell us about your time with the Saints.
Well, I was trying to think back, when Ken and I, when we crossed paths, if that was my rookie year or when that was. But was that, what year were you there?
I think it was 87. You were 3 years in.
Okay. So, I got there and I was just kind of, again, I was going up against Russell Erksleben. If you remember Russell, he
Oh,
was a
yeah.
first round draft choice as a kicker punter. So
Yes.
it's kind of like facing the Giants. I said the likelihood of me beating this guy out is, slim and none. Um, but they were kind of looking to replace him, and if I could show any kind of potential or promise, they were looking to make a change. So I was in the right place and the right position, and eventually, um, I guess got some level of confidence and showed what I could do, and ended up making the team. But I'm in the locker room, and I've got Morton Anderson, on one side of me, and just a likely connection because of the kicker and punter, and we became really good friends, and still to this day. Um, but he was kind of the man about town, most eligible bachelor in New Orleans, had the key to the city. He was hooked up, and he basically invited me into his world, and it was pretty hard not to, you know, to run with the big dog in the Big Easy. And so that's kind of the direction that I was going. And but then I had these guys um, on the other side of me in the locker room. Had a small group of guys that had started a Bible study. Bobby Abear was one of those guys. Sam Mills,
Mm.
um, Ruben Mays, and I'm not sure what year they came in. It's all kind of a blur, but we had a team chaplain, and I just accepted the invitation to meet with those guys in the locker room on Thursdays. Um, that was after Bum Phillips. We'd have Popeye's chicken and beer every Thursday. It was kind of a family bonding time, and
Yeah.
then we'd have Bible study afterwards. So it was, if you can imagine, Bum Phillips. Um, Ken, you were with um, who was our coach? Jim Mora, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you had Mora. So I had Bum for that first year, and it was definitely a play. He was definitely a player's coach and created a really family environment, and it was great man, great opportunity to play for a guy. But it was a whole different world. So there was this remnant, these guys that would meet. with our team chaplain, and it was there that I began to see what it meant to know and follow Christ just by listening to these guys and hearing the word, and just from that perspective, and coming from those guys that I looked up to and respected. I'd never really seen that at that level or expected that. And so that, just planted some seeds in my heart and my head. And so now I was kind of, you know, sitting on the fence, um, struggling with the things of the world, trying to honor God with, the opportunity he had given me. And so the Lord was just beginning to move.
Hmm.
And then this backup quarterback shows up, and and really had a huge. Your dad, Austin, had a huge impact in my life.
Hmm.
Wow.
And really, really encouraged me. Invited me to his church,
Hmm.
and it was there. I think it was Pastor Gephardt. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So it was this Bible church, and I just began to hear the word, you know, uh, preached like I'd never heard it before. We were part of a Bible study together. He invited me, you invited me to Pro Athletes Outreach. Um, Went there together with our wives, and that was huge. And then we went to a camp that was a few years later in Hilton Head, wasn't it?
Yes.
And was that Athletes in Action, or I can't remember what that was.
It was called Champions for Christ. It was privately run by a couple guys that had ties to former players.
Yeah, Mike Barber, Tony
Yes.
Dungy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember hearing a guy sharing his testimony to the group of kids and thinking, that's what I would love to be able to do with
Hmm.
that kind of clarity and with that kind of enthusiasm, and just to hear, from that perspective and that group of kids sitting there, that had a huge impact in my life. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, that's I think for the seeds for FCA and my future ministry, where that all started, just being
Wow.
exposed to that and being a part of that. So I thank you for that, and I've shared that story, several times with a lot
Wow.
of people. That quarterback that had a huge impact in my life.
My dad's but was there for what, like 3 months or something like that. That's crazy.
Well, again,
It was a
Brian,
good
as
3 months, and we had a great connection, and we
Hmm.
stayed connected for years. So it's great getting reconnected and seeing what you're doing, and yeah, and having this time today. So
Hmm.
thank you.
thank you, Brian. Those are such kind words and mean the world to me. And obviously, you've always been someone I looked up and respected as well as a person and a player. But thank you for the kind words. That for sure means a lot, and especially my son hearing that as well. But so let's shift gears a second, if you would, because most listeners probably have no idea what a punter does other than they see him run out there on fourth down and kick. But what about mindset, Brian? What does the mindset of a punter look like in preparing? And then maybe even what's a work week look like for an NFL punter?
Uh, I don't know if there's one consistent. I mean, there's some consistent uh, things that most punters do. I mean, like Morton Anderson said, kickers, punters, whatever. He would always say that the kick is made long
Hmm.
before you go out onto the field, and that was his mentality. And so I learned to develop that. So I remember initially my first couple of years that, I mean, I was scared to death to go out there, and especially get backed up in the end zone and have to kick from your 2 yard line, and you're backed up against the end line, and the game's on the line, and what can happen, and all those negative thoughts are coming through, and you're processing those. And I'm thinking, and I hate to admit this, I'm thinking, guys, throw an interception or fumble, just just, whatever. I, I don't want to be in that position. And I mean, that's the condition, just how my mindset was. And, I learned later, don't conform to the pattern of this world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That renewing of your mind thing, as I was listening to Morton saying, I want to be the guy. I want to be the guy at the end of the game that gets that kick. And
Mm.
I had to develop that mindset. I had to look at it as an opportunity. So my first year as a rookie, we had a couple of guys that had Father Mike, I think was his name. He was a sports psychologist, Catholic priest that worked with a couple of our receivers. And he came up to me and said, I think I can help you if you're interested. I work with Rich and I work with Lindsay, I think was the other guy. And he said, I work with the Olympic team and I can help you to learn how to focus. And so kind of developed some techniques that he gave me. And I utilized those over the course of my career, and just learned how to focus, how to visualize, and how to do it in a right way, not just think about it, but he actually gave me the tools to use, and then I developed that into a spiritual exercise through prayer, and then just maximizing the potential of my mind to Lord renew my mind. And it was prayerful, it was reading scripture and just drawing the truth of God's word, to strengthen me and to give me the courage to go and do what I didn't necessarily want to do. I mean, it was, really that was where I was at. I didn't enjoy doing what I did. Um, I enjoyed everything other than the games and having to perform and
Mm.
meeting the expectations that were there each and every week and each and every kick. And it wasn't like, most sports and most positions, once you get out there and start playing, the jitters are gone and now you're just competing. It was like every kick you had to get, you know kind of your head right and keep your
Mm.
head in the game. And
Right.
so I probably overthought it, but I would just try to stay focused on the next kick and
Mm.
not get too too high or too low, and learn I just had to maintain that level of, that emotional level, to be able to forget the last kick and think about the next one. So it was
I,
it was all in my head, and I knew that I had to keep that focus, and somehow be able to create that focus, and figured out a way to do that.
Mm.
well, I know looking back at a 15-year career, 5 different teams, do you have a memorable punt that you said that was the punt of my life?
Oh golly. Well, the most memorable was probably the worst. And that was in New York against the Vikings. So my team growing up, the team that I rooted for. So I knew everybody back home was watching, and we're playing in New York. 75, 80,000 people in the stands. We're having a decent year. Minute left in the game. We're up by 6 points, and we're on just the other side of the 50. Got a punt, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to put this thing out inside the 10-yard line, and you know get the applause, put our team in the best position to you know for us to win and make them drive the length of the field. And so I'm just thinking kind of end result, which that's what I think I'm supposed to do. And typically pull my head, shank it 8 yards right for our
Oh.
sideline, nearly hits Parcells in the head. And I mean, 80,000 people, booing me off the field. That one sticks with you.
Yeah, not the best place to do it, New York, that's for sure.
No, no.
Well,
So
when you look at your career, you were 5 teams. I think I got them in order. You had the Saints, the Patriots, Browns, Jets, and then the Redskins. Do you have a memorable cut story where you were let go that, again, people always see the guys that have the trophy, but in our profession, as we both know and have experienced, me more probably than you got 15 in, but you get cut and if someone tells you, we don't want your services anymore. Do you have a memorable cut story from one of those teams?
oh yeah. Um, Parcells with the Jets, who was interesting guy and really enjoyed playing for. He trying to think the progression of my time with the Jets. My first conversation with him was walking off the field, and he said, "You're from South Dakota, right?" I said, "Yep." He said, "I've always wanted to go to South Dakota. I've never been there. I want to go there one day." He was fascinated with the native culture, and he said, "Yeah, I just want to let you know that I'm going to try and replace you this year." And I'd come off one of my better years, and I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "Yeah, I got to get a young guy in here." He says, "You're too old." And he says, "I see how you old kickers work. Just one day you just can't do it anymore." And so I'm very aware of that, and I'm going to be looking for that. And I think it was his motivational
Yeah.
tactic that he used for older players, because I saw him do that with other guys, and said, "I'm going to try and replace you, find a young guy." And I kind of appreciated that, because it kind of put a little fire in me, and I knew that he was going to try and do that, so I wanted to prove him wrong, that I could still play at that level. And so it was kind of a wake up call, and I think he knew what he was doing. But he uh, he did find a young guy that he picked up from the Vikings that had a good preseason, and he had actually told me 3 days before that I had made the team, and then this guy comes on the free agent, you know, wire, becomes available. He signs him and tells me, we're gonna let you go. We're gonna go with the young guy. And so uh, I was kind of shocked by that after him telling me I'd made the team. But that's typical Parcells. He'll say one thing one day, and if something better comes along that he thinks is going to help the team. But then, so I go home, and it was kind of this bittersweet. I'm just thinking. I mean, I'm at a place spiritually where I had these guys uh, that Kyle Brady. I don't know if you remember Kyle Brady.
Yes.
Tight
Kyle
end.
Brady. Yep, tight
Yeah.
end for the.
Okay.
He's the number one draft choice. Guys like Kyle, Frank Reich, we had on the team that had really, I mean, just I was at a place where I was like kind of ready to be done, and just uh, my relationship with the Lord was just, I thought, growing and solidified to a certain point. And so I remember on the way home, just I was kind of fighting that bitter pill that I had just received, and that news, and then just praising God for, man, I got to play longer than I ever thought, and this is so great. And I don't know what I'm gonna do next. I'm thinking I'm done, and I kind of wanted to be done. And said, "Lord, I don't know what you have for me," but it was just a moment where I just knew that I needed to trust him. And I just kept going back to that every time that I had this doubt of, like, well, now what am I going to do? And what's life after football going to be? And I'm just thinking, I'm just thankful. I mean, I just have to be thankful. I just have to trust that the Lord is gonna work it out. And I don't know what it's gonna look like or what I'm gonna do. Um, but I got home the next day. I get a call from the state director of FCA, and he says, "Hey, let's have lunch." And I knew the guy a little bit, and we had lunch. And he asked if I was interested in working with FCA, and I said I was. I said, "I have no idea what that looks like, but it sounds like kind of what I would like to do. And I was kind of excited about that. I get home and my wife meets me on the porch. She got the phone. She goes, "Guess who's on the phone?" I said, "I don't know." He says, "It's Coach Parcells." I said, "Really?" I said, "Really?" And I said, so I'm thinking, I wonder what, he wants. And he says, "Hey, we want you to come back." He's this young guy. He says, "I can't put up with this, uh, with it any longer." He says, I can't do a young guy." He says, I need you back. And so I end up going back, and that was the beginning of the next 3 years of back and forth of him the next year saying, "You're not any younger, so I'm going to get a young guy again." And did the same thing, but instead of cutting me, he traded me to the Packers and he let them cut me. So it was a crazy roller coaster. I'm home for 3 weeks, and that the next year, and then he brings me back again because the young guy he got fed up with quickly and brought me back, and it was just kind of an emotional roller coaster. And I didn't know if I was coming or going, but some neat stories in there where God was kind of working in me and refining me and eventually preparing me, I think, for uh, FCA and full-time ministry.
Hmm. So, not being recruited and then punting for 15 years in the NFL, what advice do you have for other people or other athletes to encourage them on their journey?
Oh, guys that are aspiring to do that, or
Yes, sir.
yeah, I don't know. I saw so many guys that over the years, would have that dream and that desire and do everything possible to make that happen. And for some, it worked out, and they would get a chance, and they would go from uh, being um, on nobody's high on anybody's list to all of a sudden becoming given a chance, given an opportunity to do very well and have long, successful careers. Other guys, they worked. And Ken, I know you saw these guys that would come in as camp bodies and with no um, expectation to ever make it, and they would make it. And so, boy, I don't know, guys. um, I think if you have a dream, you have to pursue it, and if the Lord opens that door, um, that's what I attribute it to. It's like there's a lot of guys that have the potential and the opportunity, given the opportunity, that they could play at that level and play at a high level. But I just think it's in what you in that pursuit, developing those disciplines, um,
Mm.
that it's gonna, whether it works out or not, um, the Lord will use it for good.
Mm.
Brian, we talk a lot in our ministry too when we're talking with coaches and athletes and people in leadership. We talk about identity, and that's somewhat of a buzzword in Christianity, and sometimes people don't really understand even what that means. But when you look through your journey in your Christian faith, do you have a moment, or maybe it's people that really helped you say, what I do is one thing, who I truly am in Christ is another? What helped you understand your identity and your growth process?
Oh, golly. Kind of a defining mark or defining.
Yeah.
um
When did you just say, yeah, I'm a punter, but that's not who I am. That's what I do, but I am God's child.
yeah, I think I saw that uh clear defining mark was in New York, and I'm part of this small group of guys that said to Kyle Brady and Frank Reich, a couple other guys that were part of that. And I'm at practice one day, and I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm just Lord is just kind of working through the ups and downs and all the things that had happened. And I'm sitting on the sideline one day preparing for the game. So it's a Friday. And so prayer had become part of and you'd asked before, what do you do to prepare? I would, you can't kick the whole 2.5 hour practice. So you learn how to, kind of work on your mind, and prayer became a part of that. I'm sitting over there on the sideline, just kind of watching, the real football players, get ready for the game. And I just had this thought, this vision of what if Christ walked onto the field, and we're in this indoor, 80-yard inflated bubble that was our practice field in New York. And like, what if Christ walked through that door and onto the field? And I'm just, I don't know, thinking about this, seeing this, imagining this. And I'm thinking, you know, Parcells might stop practice for Christ, but I'm not sure uh, if he'd take the time. Uh, but I knew that he'd know certain guys in that group, that he would know their name, that he would call their name, that he would embrace them. I'm just trying to that's what I was seeing. And then I'm thinking, here I am sitting over here. Would he look my way? Would he know my name? And it was just kind of a um, defining mark where I just had this greater awareness of the exceeding sinfulness of my nature, and that I had seen myself for years as my identity was in being an NFL football player,
Mhm.
and the way you see yourself, the pride that comes with that, the arrogance, the position that puts you in. I had an overwhelming sense of that, just the exceeding sinfulness of my nature. And I was trying to do the right thing, and I was trying to be a good Christian. I was trying to follow Christ, but I mean, it just came to that moment. And it was just like, I want my identity to be in Christ. I want to be, I want that to be who I am. And that, I mean, it was just kind of a clear, line that I crossed, and came to that understanding that that's how I'd perceive myself. That's how I wanted to be known and recognized. And that was really kind of the end,
Mm.
when the end began, because that next, so that's Friday. On Sunday, we're playing the Dolphins, and I get my knee blown out, and that was the beginning of the end of my career.
Mm.
So it was,
Wow.
yeah, that was uh, a clear mark
Mm.
that
Thank,
I think God finally brought. It just took me a while to get there, because I was, rebellious and stubborn, but God was just continuing to grow and work in me.
Mm.
thanks for sharing that, Brian. That's appreciate your transparency. Well, let's jump to what I know you love, and that's your family. Tell us a little bit about your wife and your children, and maybe the role they helped play in your NFL career too.
Yeah, going on 40 years of marriage. So
That's awesome.
praise the Lord for that. And Lori,
Yes.
and the fact that she's put up with me for that long, and through the NFL, and through the challenges and of ministry,
Mm.
and what I've been doing for the last 26 years. But we've got 3 kids and 6 grandkids, and blessed beyond measure with that. My kids are all in Sioux Falls, and so we're all together a lot of times. So that is a huge blessing. And my kids are doing well, and grandkids are in crazy mode right now. They're out on the dock fishing, and we're able to spend a lot of quality family time together. But yeah, just thankful to be a dad, and to have gotten to the almost 40-year mark. So it's a lot of years. So Lord has
Yeah.
been faithful and has blessed us tremendously.
And Pauline and I are 38, so we're just slightly behind you.
And you're
So
how many years old?
I'm going to be 62 this summer.
Yeah, I'm reaching the magical 65 mark, which never that seems so far off, and now it's just a couple of months away. So,
Yeah, we have 4 kids and 6 grandkids as well, so can relate.
and Austin, are you the oldest or?
yeah, I'm the oldest. I'm 36 right now, so I'm showing that he's old. So so life after the NFL. Obviously, you referenced that you went to or you started with FCA. Talk about that transition and the people along the way.
Going from the NFL to where I'm at today.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that when it finally ended back and forth with the Jets and getting traded and then picked back up, and um, I was I knew I had this opportunity with FCA, and it was a pretty clear, uh, I think, sign from the Lord as I was seeking. What do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? I was just open to whatever, but I didn't want to go into retirement mode, and I mean that was scary and that was disturbing to think about. I mean, I don't want to go golfing. I don't want to go fishing. I want to do something, and I think the Lord had just prepared me for something. So He opened that door, and I started with FCA and did that for a year. And I mean, I was loving what I was doing, thinking I was going to do it on a part-time basis, and that became full-time. I mean, I just really enjoyed learning and growing and being a part of that ministry. And then I get a call out of the blue. The Redskins wanted me to come back to fill in for a week or two. And I mean, that's a whole nother story. I don't know if we want to go there. Another defining mark. Uh, but I ended up going back for a couple of weeks, and the Lord was continuing to show me some things there. I basically laid out a fleece and said, Lord, do you want me to go back? I don't know. I don't want to do this. I do not want to do this. But if you want me to go, then if they call back, I'll go.
Yeah.
But it's like I want you to know that if this is what you call me to do, FCA, that I want to do that. And so the personnel guy calls me up and said, we really want you to come back. We're playing the Cowboys, and we've got Deion Sanders, and we need a directional kicker, and we think you're the guy. And I haven't kicked a ball in a year. I have no desire to kick. I have no desire to kick a ball. And he said, really? He says, I can't believe you're not ready, and somebody's going to call you. And I said, well, I really don't want to kick to Deion Sanders. Really excited about that idea. And I said, you don't have other guys that are on the list? He says, yeah, we've got 3 or 4 guys we're going to bring in on Tuesday. And he named the guys. They're all experienced guys. I said, give it to one of them. Thank you very much. Thanks for, you thinking about me. He said, well, you go out and kick and just see how you're doing. And so I was kind of intrigued. I thought, I'll just go see, how I can do. And I kind of left it as, okay, if I'm like, Lord, if they want me to come back, if they call me after trying out these 4 guys, I'll go.
Yeah.
It'll be a clear sign to me. And I'd never laid out a fleece. I didn't know if I even should, but I didn't know how to respond. So 3 days later, they call me up. I'm driving down the road to go visit a school, visit a coach with FCA. And they said, hey, where are you? I said, I'm in Esteline, South Dakota. He said, how far are you from the airport? I said, too far. He said, we want you to come. And I said, are you serious? So you're saying if I come, I'm going to be kicking on Sunday to Dion? And he said, well, we got one other guy. And I'm thinking, it was Mike Horan. I don't know if you remember Mike
Yeah,
Horan.
it was Mike. Mike was with the Broncos when I was there.
Oh, did you? I mean, a great directional punter, and just a seasoned veteran. I knew that he'd been released the year before and was probably ready and good to go. And I'm thinking, just let Mike have it. And then I remembered, I said, if they call, I'll go. And so I said, what the heck? I'll go. And I went, and I thought they'll put me up in a hotel the night before. I'll get room service. I'll watch a little TV, and I'll just have a nice little getaway. And went and kicked the next day. And Mike and I both kicked. He'd kick three, I'd kick three. And they came up to me afterwards and said, "Can you do that on Sunday?" I said, "Well, I hope so." He said, "We are. You're our guy." And so I practice on Friday, get on a plane on Saturday, and Sunday we're playing in Dallas for the division lead, and it was about as ugly as you could get. Bad kick, served one up to Dion. He catches it on a dead run. 76 yards later, touchdown.
No.
and and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? I mean, what was that all about? I come off the field, and Brad Johnson was our quarterback. I don't know if you know Brad,
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
but he's the locker next to me, and he says, "Man, I thought you had more heart than that." And he just kind of shook his head, and I just said, I didn't know what to say, but I was devastated. I felt I let the team down, and I'm wondering, Lord, why? What was this for? What's this
Yeah.
all about? And so he kind of showed me over time what that was all about, and that was. So I ended up being there 3 weeks, and then going home, and then that was it. And I knew it was clearly over and clearly done after
What
that.
do you think he showed you during that time?
Uh, well, it was just a handful of things, just to trust him, and just to be obedient, regardless of the outcome. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was going to happen, what I'd learned from it. But um, yeah, it was an interesting time, um, interesting experience, and I think there was just an additional level of humility that needed to come from being completely embarrassed uh, in that position, and then uh, it's never stopped, and it comes up all the time. Oh yeah, I saw the clip of you and Dion, and so it brought me to a whole nother level of humility, I think, and
Mm.
just knowing that you think you're going to have these expectations of great things because you think you're honoring the Lord. And I remember Frank Reich talking about that when he had his big comeback. I don't know if you ever heard that story,
The
but
one when he was with playing the Oilers, is that right?
yeah, playing the Oilers, had this great comeback, had this amazing game. They go on to the next level of playoffs, and he in his press conference is quoting scripture and just saying, I mean, just honoring the Lord and giving full acknowledgement to the Lord's hand in it and working through him, whatever. And so him having this expectation, I've honored the Lord, and God honors those who honor him, thinking, next week is going to be the next step. And I think he threw three interceptions, had three fumbles, and just had, this uh, anything but what he was expecting. And I think that's part of what he showed me there, that uh, I don't know that I fully grasp it. I just knew it was needed and necessary for some reason. And it was good. It was good to be humbled, humiliated to that level in national television, and I questioned, was it a test that I would am I really committed to this ministry and am going to say no?
Hmm.
But I just kind of felt that I was supposed to go for some reason. So
Yeah.
Brian, when you think of FCA, we're going to get the legacy and end it up here also in a minute, but when you think of FCA and all your work with coaches, because this is really, again, why Win Awakening is here in my heart and Austin's heart, what do you see as the biggest need for coaches, Brian, as you work with these men?
the biggest need?
Yeah, the biggest need for coaches.
Oh, that there would, there would be a, I don't know, we talk a lot about B3D, B3 dimensional. I think it's a language uh, that they can understand, develop physically, mentally, and spiritually as an athlete, and to incorporate the spiritual dimension into your, into your program. And that, I mean, it's
Mm,
easy to say to a coach that you should have a spiritual dimension when a guy doesn't understand the spiritual dimension.
right.
We talk we talk about being a transformational coach, and who doesn't want to be a transformational coach? I
Right.
mean, you ask a coach, why are they coaching? They want to make a difference from whatever experience they've had or whatever motivation they've had to coach, that they want to be a positive influence, uh, for the most part. I mean, they're what we call the good guy coaches. They want to make a difference. They want to be positive. They want to have an impact, and regardless of their coaching philosophy. But to be a transformational coach, as you guys know, there has to be transformation. And
Yes.
so, you know, to to for the spiritual dimension to be, I guess, brought into their reality, into their picture, into their philosophy is, what's needed, and what's necessary, and is going to transform the way that they not only coach, but the way that they live, and as fathers and as husbands. And so you want to see them experience, what it means to know and follow Christ, and then
Hmm.
how that works into their coaching philosophy, and how they truly can have an impact and, you know be transformational from an eternal perspective, as opposed to just, being a good guy coach, encouraging guys to do well and have success as an athlete, if they don't have an eternal perspective, and these to see the potential that they can have as a coach, knowing the coaches that influenced me, and the seeds that were planted, and what can come from that. You want those guys to be able to understand that and experience that, and not just see that as, this religious thing that has no place in football, but to see it you know from the right perspective.
Hmm.
Mm, well
Well
said.
said. um, so Brian, you've had lots of success as a player. How would you define the word success?
Oh, I mean, coming to a place of understanding of what success is, wins or losses, just how you've lived your life, how you have. Um, I mean, it really comes down to, have you come to know and trust Christ? I mean,
Hmm.
Mm,
that is truly success. So you can
Yeah.
have, all of the victories in the world, all the championships, all the trophies, whatever. Um, but if you haven't come to that place, that you have come to a true understanding of your right relationship with the Lord, uh, and you're in a right relationship, that you haven't created a God to suit yourself. And I think that's where a lot of guys are at, and that's a significant part of our ministry, is just bringing clarity and understanding to
mm,
what is true success. And that is for you, first and foremost, to understand, the truth of God's word, the simplicity of the gospel, to know that and embrace and understand that, and be able to not only know him, but to make him known. I mean, I think that's our true calling. And if we don't get there, um, you know, I mean, what do you really have?
I
I
know
mean,
your heart, Austin. You want to comment on that? Because I know what your eyes are
Well,
thinking.
our family mission is to know God and to make Him known. So, when you said that, it just it triggered, you know, it triggered in me just because that's like you said. I mean, the most important thing is to experience His life, and to experience His life is to know Him, and because that changes everything. Like you said, in order to experience transformation, you got to be transformed by Him first off. So for me, just you know, I'm with you on everything you said on what success is. Now, like you said, the challenge is living out of that and believing that every day. But it's definitely the truth.
So, Brian, as we get ready here to wind up our time together, which we're so grateful, when someone encounters Brian Hansen, what do you want them to experience, and how do you want to be remembered?
well, hopefully that there would be some reflection of Christ in the way that uh, whatever encounter that is or whatever interaction there is, that I have somehow able to communicate that or just reflect him in the way that I do what I do. Um,
Mm.
I mean, you think about do I want to be remembered as as a pro football player? I mean, certainly you never. I mean, you wear that badge or whatever comes with that acknowledgement, but you know that it's. I mean, it's temporary and it's fleeting, and that hopefully I'd be remembered, um, or would have some kind of a positive influence, in that I wasn't ashamed or I wasn't afraid to um, talk about talk about Christ, or
Mm.
to be intentional about that. That I would be what I call peculiar. I've got these friends that have been mentors, have discipled me, have been examples to me. That a couple in particular. One was a dyslexic carpenter uh, that really I just got to spend time with, and learned how to pray. Just simple uh, simple prayers. And we would pray together, and he would pray with me, and he'd pray over the phone when I was playing, and had a great influence in my life. But that I would be you know somewhat peculiar. And I was looking at that the definition of peculiar, and there's several definitions, but one of them is his own.
Mm.
Being peculiar is his own. There's something about him that everything is kind of geared towards talking about or sharing the love of Christ, and not afraid to bring that up, or to be associated with, or I mean, for that to be your identity. So
Mm.
um, yeah, I hope I would be different than the world, and not afraid to share my faith and to live it.
Well said. Thank you. Well, the last thing we do is we call it final words, or even words of life. I want to give you an opportunity to share anything that is on your heart at this moment, or something maybe we didn't ask you. And then Austin will follow up, and I'll close us after that.
Hmm. I yeah, I guess looking at where I'm at, and at this season in life, and you know been in full-time ministry for 26 plus years, um, that I think you come to these crossroads, and I'm at this place where I'm trying to figure out, what does the next chapter look like? Do I continue to do what I'm doing, and trying to create I guess the the sense of urgency and the passion that I had initially,
Mhm.
uh, just to be able to persevere. Um, I guess I've been challenged by that. Is you sometimes get caught up in the things of the world and just looking at. I mean, I just want to persevere and finish strong.
Mhm.
Um, I think the First Timothy, it says, fight the good fight, remain faithful, finish strong. I mean, those. I try to, I guess, hold on to that, not lose sight of that, and um, to know that what's done for Christ is the only thing that lasts, and to not get caught up in this idea of retirement and just kind of taking it easy. uh,
Mm.
my hope and my prayer is that I would continue, you know, like you. I mean, to do what you're doing and to have the impact that you're having. Again, you've kind of reinforced that in me by us getting reconnected and to see what you're doing and the
Mm.
impact you're having with coaches and to see Austin. And I mean, what a tremendous, legacy of your faith, that your son is following in your footsteps. And that's an amazing thing. And that's what I hope is that, I mean, you can continue to make disciples and see God continue to work in the ways that he does. So
Well,
it's a
Brian,
lot of
thank you.
rambling.
No, thank you so much for first off your time. And I was growing up. I'd always watch. Football was a big part of my life, and you were a big time punter. Like for those of the people who are younger nowadays, and like I remember watching you all the time, and I knew that you knew my dad and all that, but um, so the thing I took away is you're just very, very humble. And,
Mm.
as I sit here and I listen to your story, and I'm just so grateful for you allowing us to sit and listen to, God's work in your life. And I'm just, motivated to, just kind of follow in your footsteps and just, uh, take something that you're very passionate about and you spend a lot of your time doing, but ultimately taking it and refocusing it and point doing it for something for eternal value. And just some of the things that popped out to me is I loved your little statement about being peculiar. And and really that's that identity. What makes us peculiar is in him, or is it's him alone is what makes us different. And he's the one that defines us, he's the one that gives us our identity, he's the one that gives us hope, he's the one that gives us passion and our next steps forward. Because like you said, of any of us here, you've had a phenomenal career, and to sit and say that there's more to life than just that, um, is a testimony, and motivates us to set our sights higher on something that's eternal and something that can last and bring life for all people. So thank you for your time.
Well, Brian, I didn't know if I would share this or not, but I'm going to. But first of all, I just want to thank you for being genuine. I think that's the word. When I hear you talk, you're just a genuine person. You are, Austin said, have great humility very easily with the career you had. You could come across in so many different ways. I think the coaches that you have the opportunity to work with at FCA, it's a blessing. But I just want to say this to you personally. Last week I was having a tough week. There were some things going on in our home that right now are very difficult. And as I was doing research for this podcast, I knew a lot about you, but I always try to do some other stuff with people as well. And I don't know how I came across it. And Austin knows because I called Austin right away. And it was a podcast you were on. And I'm sitting there listening to your podcast, and you get to the point where you tell the story about the locker room with Morton Anderson and me. And I just want to tell you, you're sitting in Sioux Falls, and I'm in Coleman, Alabama. But God used your story and your willingness to talk about our relationship. And here's what went through my mind. Papa was saying, Ken, my tapestry in life, you have no idea what I'm doing. And you might be with a person for one conversation. You might have a week with a person. You could have 15 years with a person. I am always working because you are my workmanship. And so I just want to thank you for your words of encouragement. You didn't even know it was happening, but last week you were speaking to the Karchers. And I appreciate that very much from you, and God's working in our life. And I just want to encourage you as you hit, like you said, this fourth quarter of our life. You have so much to give. Just sharing your story, as Austin and I've learned over the last 2 years, having people on this podcast, story is the greatest thing that Papa uses. And so I just encourage you to keep talking to people, sharing your story, being willing to listen to their story, and great things happen from that. So as we close today, Austin, I want to thank you for just allowing us to share your story with our listeners at Awaken Kingdom Culture, where one story at a time.